The front line is meant to be somewhere else. These guns are meant to be silent. But this battle is close quarters. Soldiers fighting desperately for land near the frontier town of Volodymyr, close to the Russian border. Land that since last Friday has seen one of the most significant Russian ground attacks since the start of the war play out. Everything will be fine, don't worry, he says. Words belied by the evacuation of her and 7,500 other civilians, according to authorities. For months, the 620-mile front line barely budged. That has now changed.
They're shooting from everywhere. Yesterday there was a hit and the front of our house burned down. Then the house opposite caught fire, then 4 or 5 other houses. Smoke everywhere. It was a nightmare.
It's so good to see you. Wonderful to be back.
Key amongst Ukraine's problems, a chronic lack of munitions. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Kyiv this morning, along with, he said, the first part of an American aid package worth $60 billion. It's a good start, says Zelenskyy, but he needs more.
The decision on the package was crucial for us. It's very important to get it as quick as possible. And the second point is air defense, the biggest deficit for us.
Top of the list of needs, he says, Patriot air defense systems for the now under fire Kharkiv. Under fire partly because of US delays negotiating this aid package through Congress, says the UK Defence Secretary.
But I'm afraid some of the world was caught napping, and it's enabled Russia to get something of the upper hand in Kharkiv. I don't think Kharkiv is about to fall, fortunately, and I spoke to my opposite number, the Ukrainian Defence Minister Umarov, yesterday afternoon. But nonetheless, we're in this position because there was a long delay getting the additional support required.
Thank you.
In Kyiv, Antony Blinken not only assured ongoing aid for the future, but a pledge for damage done in the past.
Making Russia pay for Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. What Putin destroyed, Russia should and must pay to rebuild.
But what if in 6 months' time it's a different administration, less welcome for photo opportunities in Ukraine? A Trump administration that's already indicated a desire for a cheaper, negotiated solution.
Ukrainians never would accept Ukrainian territories to be Russian. That's impossible. That would never happen. And also it's completely against international law. That would be the end of international law in the world.
Kharkiv this afternoon, the aftermath of an aerial bombardment. But shelling is very different to occupation. And that is the fear for those who used to call the villages east of Kharkiv home. The villages sitting in the borderlands with Russia.
Many of these people who now evacuate, they already endured Russian occupation. So they know what to be prepared for. And this is why they're so urgently moving out before Russian advance.
Ukrainian forces are outmanned and outgunned. $60 billion worth of arms may now start to flow east. The question these soldiers fear, what happens when that runs out too?
Well, joining me now is Mikhail Kasyanov, who was Russian Prime Minister in 2000 after Vladimir Putin became president, a job he held until 2004. But he's now, of course, a huge critic of Vladimir Putin. But Mr. Kasyanov, nice to see you again. But when you look at Georgia and Ukraine, is Putin winning?
Slightly, yes. We see, unfortunately, this movement of his proxies in Georgia, and of course, just new offensive against Ukraine. That is absolutely just the interviews he have just shown, just described that the lack of ammunition. That is the biggest, the crucial problem for Ukraine. And I hope just the NATO leaders would make their decisions soon, just to reconsider the whole support for Ukraine, not just for defense of the current positions, but for liberation of occupied territories. I believe just upcoming NATO summit will make such a decision.
Do you think there's been a lack of resolve by the West to give Ukraine enough to win?
Yeah, we can see just $60 billion of US support and approximately the same European Union and Great Britain. That is only $120 billion. Mr. Putin spends $170 billion, and he has advantage on manpower and ammunition. That's why just for him it's easier to have offensive, and for Ukrainian it's impossible. Ukrainians should get just the doubled support from the West. In this case, they can start next year, now already only next year, to start their counteroffensive and start liberating their occupied territories.
But does Ukraine also have the manpower? You know, it is holding back from widening conscription. Does it need to rethink that?
Yeah, that's a problem. Of course, that's a problem. In Russia, it's also a problem. And Ukraine is a problem because, just of course, Ukraine is a smaller country compared with Russia, but they have reserves and they could be prepared for new offensive, but not this summer. Not this summer. This summer they should rebuild everything just with the new support of Western supplies of this ammunition and new military techniques, and just to reestablish all their preparation for next year. But it's important to make a principled decision that you should not be scared of Mr. Putin so much as before. I think NATO leaders should make this decision.
I mean, so when you look at Putin, you know, if you think back over the last 2 years, there have been so many theories that, you know, his own side would get him. He was ill. He was this. He was on his way out. He seems stronger than ever, and strong enough to be able to reshuffle his top team, his defense minister, in the way he wants to. What do you think the thinking is behind this move of a very loyal lieutenant in Shoigu?
Absolutely. First, we should emphasize that Mr. Putin, during last year, managed to transfer economy on the war footing, while Ukrainian leadership just didn't manage to do this. And Putin just feels stronger on this. And in fact, these new appointments, re-establishing just a new, I wouldn't say new team, but to establish a better coordination between civilian agencies of the government and military, so that to be sure that all military production machine works well and just produce exactly what the war requires. And that's why he's simply just making a better quality coordination in this sphere. And it is clear that priority of all his economic policy would be military production, to ensure that supplies of ammunition and new techniques go to the war.
Do you think there's a danger that the West thinks Putin is contained, effectively, that he has now a war economy, all his focus is on, you know, survival and slow advance in Ukraine, but he can't win, and that actually it's better to just let this drag on?
I'm sure just all Western leaders wouldn't like to see Mr. Putin as a dictator, just with the say, triumph victory. No one can see and allow to see this. That's why just a special policy, new policy should be established, and just full reconsideration should be done quickly to understand how to help Ukraine, how to support Ukraine, so that Mr. Putin would not be looked as a winner, but better in maybe 1 year time as a defeated dictator.
Mikhail Kasyanov, thank you very much.
Thank you.